Να βάλουμε στη συζήτηση και τον διάσημο γεωπολιτικό αναλυτή, τον Ρόμπερτ Κάπλαν, με τον οποίο συνομιλήσαμε πριν από λίγες ώρες, για να δούμε τι μας λέει σε σχέση με τον Τραμπ και την νέα εποχή που ανατέλει στον κόσμο, για να τον συζητήσουμε εδώ στο στούντιο. Professor Kaplan, Donald Trump has taken some ambiguous positions like invading Panama, Greenland, etc. Is that a chicken game, or do you think that he will push things to the edge?
You have to take Trump seriously, but not literally. His method of speaking is to exaggerate to a high degree. When he talks about invading Greenland, what he really probably means is that he wants the Danes to do more in terms of security, you know, because that's a very strategic submarine sea lane in eastern Greenland where the Russian fleet comes out of with its submarines. He's going to want the Danes to invest more. You know, in the defense of Greenland. But being Trump, he doesn't say that. You know, he just raises a very dramatic, you know, raises the drama. But I think you're going to see the Danes are going to do more. And in terms of Canada, I mean, in terms of Panama, we're going to see a better deal for U.S. shipping, perhaps. But that's, you know, Trump's method is to exaggerate. So take him seriously, but not literally.
Do you sense NATO will transform its greed? Do you sense the European allies will realize it's time for a defense and energy autonomy?
Well, it's going to be hard for Europe because all these decades, the reason why Europe, with the exception of Greece and Poland and some other countries, have had very low defense budgets, is because there was no popular support for it. I mean, in the Mediterranean countries of Europe, Spain, Portugal, Italy, Greece, the fear is less Ukraine than migrants from the higher birth rate societies in sub-Saharan Africa and the Middle East. So with little public support for dramatically raising defense budgets, it's going to be very hard. Europe will be in crisis because keep in mind, the United States has led Europe, paid for Europe's defense essentially since the late 1940s. That's a long time in history, especially with so much technological change. It's the equivalent to 200 years in other periods of history when there was less technological change. And one cannot expect the United States to be emotionally engaged in the defense of Europe forever. And I think Trump's election was an indication of that.
Is China now the biggest opponent? Do you think that a tariff war is underway?
Well, I think the Biden administration actually did a very good job with China. It avoided a military conflict, but it did not give in. It was very tough. It orchestrated a rapprochement between Japan and South Korea, which was very significant in order to allow both those countries to focus more on China, even though they wouldn't say that. It instituted the AUKUS agreement, providing nuclear-powered submarines for Australia with American and British technology. That's a big deal because Australia was sort of being defended by the U.S. and making money off China. It was in the middle. Now it's jumped. It's jumped to the U.S. side. So I think the Biden administration did very, very well when it comes to China, you know, in terms of there was no war, but our strategic position, you know, has improved, has moved with the times, and we'll see if Trump can do as well or better.
Do you sense the ceasefire in the Middle East will last?
I'm very skeptical because from the point of view of Netanyahu and his allies, this is a bad deal. Because they have to give up, what is it, 700, 800 Palestinian prisoners in Israeli jails, a significant number of whom were imprisoned for terrorism, were serving life sentences. This is precisely the method of operating that led to the Gaza war in the first place. Because remember, the Israelis gave up, I believe, over 1,000 prisoners, including Yahya Sinwar, in order to get back one Israeli soldier. Now, this agreement is not that lopsided, but it's close. So I think that this is a tough deal for Netanyahu. I think he will argue it because he said, look, at the very beginning of his administration, we cannot seem to be on the bad side of Trump. We have to give Trump this victory because we're going to need his help with Iran. So I think that's the core logic behind closed doors that's driving this. But it's not a great deal from Israel's point of view, one could argue. Even the Gaza ceasefire is mainly Trump. Because had Trump not threatened, this is a lot like when Jimmy Carter left the White House. Jimmy Carter left the White House in the moment that President Reagan was inaugurated, the Iranians released the hostages. This is a similar thing because they knew that this new guy, Reagan, was going to be a lot tougher than Carter was. So it's a similar situation. I think Trump's going to want to make a big splash.
Will Turkey and Erdogan win more space in the East Mediterranean with Trump in power?
I'm not so sure about that. Trump understands leverage. As when he said, if all the hostages aren't released by January 20th, there will be all hell to pay. That's a kind of understanding of leverage that President Biden never understood. I mean, they never understood it. Secretary of State Blinken, they never understood this. Trump it's instinctual, and I think Erdogan understands that, So we'll have to see how things develop. Remember, Erdogan is getting old too. He's not going to be around forever. And we have to start thinking about a post-Erdogan Turkey, which after decades of institution destruction in the Turkish bureaucracy, because of Erdogan's essentially dictatorial rule, Turkey could be in a very weakened state afterwards. We'll have to see.
Finally, what about Russia and Putin? Will he try to engage in a peacekeeping operation in Ukraine? What a possible deal in Ukraine might look like?
Well, what Trump has to do is get a ceasefire or an armistice of sorts, but one that doesn't give Putin an obvious victory. That's what he has to do, and that's very hard. But that's what statesmanship is all about, doing hard things. Trump's Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, he's normal, unlike some of the other Trump cabinet appointees who are really not normal. Rubio could rise. Rubio is not brilliant, but he's capable and he's normal and he's an experienced senator. And if he appoints good people below him in the State Department, he could be successful as Secretary of State.
Professor Kaplan, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much.